Hello, and welcome to week 3. We will be talking about the biological process of aging. And Moody and Sasser have set this topic up as a controversy in the textbook. And it's kind of interesting that it is a controversy because there really isn't much controversy around the fact that we are aging or that our bodies age. But the controversy comes in terms of talking about what exactly is happening to our bodies when we age and why do our bodies age. So one thing that we know for sure is that the process of biological aging is inevitable. No species on this planet will live forever. But the question really comes in, is biological aging a part of, is it chance? Is it just left up to, just fate as to how our bodies are going to age? Is it already programmed into our DNA and we really have no control over that? Is it just our biological clock? And so the chapter sets up about 8 or so different theories about aging. So I'm going to go through those with you in just a moment. There is one concept I want you to make sure you read about, and that's on page 57. It's called Gompertz Law. And Gompertz Law is basically a theory that the longer you live, the more chance there is that you are going to die before a younger person will die. So a 60-year-old person is more likely to die before a 30-year-old person, or an 80-year-old person is more likely to die before a 60-year-old person. So that's just one thing I want you to understand is what does Gompertz Law tell us. Also, I'm going to just have you jump forward in the book to page 136, where Moody and Sasser talk about what is normal aging, and is there such a thing? I'm kind of surprised Moody and Sasser didn't include this in the section about biological aging because I think it really ties in well. But normal aging can be described as an underlying, irreversible process that's characterized by all members of each species. It can be defined as a time-dependent series of cumulative, progressive, intrinsic, and ultimately harmful changes that begin to manifest themselves at reproductive maturity and eventually end in death. So it's an underlying, irreversible, progressive process. But there are theories that attempt to define what that process actually is. So I'm going to go through those with you real quick. The wear and tear theory sees aging primarily as just a result of chance. The human body, like all organisms, are constantly wearing out and being repaired each day. And thousands of cells die and are replaced, and damaged cells are repaired. But like parts of a car, the book explains, like parts of a car, there are just certain parts that are going to ultimately wear out. And everybody's cells are different, and those cells are going to wear out at faster rates for people, just like people can have 2 cars, and one person's car gets rusted out after 10 years and another person's car doesn't. So it's just kind of chance how it all happens, and it's essentially related to cells and the damage that our cells sustain. Then there's somatic mutation theory that relates aging to essentially harmful radiation and exposure of our cells to radiation as a result of the experience of our genetic changes. And the problem with this particular theory is that it would almost imply that there would be higher rates of cancer in our society if somatic mutation was related to radiation exposure. So this theory has some problems as well, but there is probably some truth to the fact that through just the air that we breathe, we are exposed to things that are harmful. And those things that are harmful will trigger the aging process. Then there is the accumulative waste theory of aging, which is the accumulation of waste products, which is related to cell waste. So as cells die and regrow, and as that happens over time, cell waste is left behind in our body. So the aging process is related to waste products accumulating over the course of many years. Then there's the autoimmune theory of aging. That's pretty self-explanatory. Our immune system is set up to prevent us from being exposed to lots of viruses and bacteria. We have our system in our body is intended to kind of fight those things off. But as we age, our immune system becomes weakened and it becomes less effective, and we ultimately succumb to viruses and bacteria. Then there's the aging clock theory, which basically says aging is just programmed into our bodies, and that there are naturally occurring events in our bodies that we're just programmed to age. The examples that they give in the book relate to a female and the menstruation period time in their life, then menopause, and that that these are things that are just programmed into our system. So that's the aging clock theory. Then there's the cross-linkage theory, which relates to collagen, and that collagen is a natural protein found in the skin and found in our bodies. And collagen is supposed to be very supple and very giving. And as we age, our collagen essentially dries up. And that's sort of what some of the visuals are of older people, that, they become all crinkled up and they lose the ability to use their joints and their knees and their shoulders, and that it's collagen based is what is really causing the process of aging. Then there is the free radical theory of aging, which is related to the byproduct of oxygen metabolism. And free radicals are highly reactive and toxic when they come in contact with other cell structures. So it has to do with the metabolization of oxygen in our system. And then the cellular theory of aging argues that aging is a result of our progressive weakening of our cells to actually divide. And we eventually become incapable of replacing dead cells. And so because of that, we age and then we ultimately die. So we've got a lot of stuff there. We have, it's programmed, it's due to radiation and free radicals and accumulation of waste in our bodies from the dying off and rebirth of cells. There is the wear and tear that our bodies are just going to rust out. There's all of those theories. But the one thing to be sure you understand is that no one theory is going to entirely explain what happens in the aging process. It could be all of these things. It could be different in each individual. And as we've learned in studying and learning about the life course perspective on aging, our life course will likely influence a lot of what our bodies will do as we biologically age. I'm have to believe that the choices that we make in our life related to diet and exercise and how good we take care of our bodies and how attentive we are to this vessel that our souls are living in will definitely influence the process of aging. So there is no one thing that's going to explain everything. So the other thing I want to make sure that you take a look at is on page 87. And so as we talk about the biological process of aging, we have to, and if this is an area that we want to study, we have to have ways of measuring aging. We have to find ways of measuring the results of aging. So there are global self-related health instruments that are used when researchers are looking at the effects of aging. And there are self-rated instruments where the elderly person is asked to rate themselves and what their overall health is. And then within that, there are also functional impairment instruments that are used that measure a person's ability, basically their physical function, their ability to walk, their ability to get up from a chair, their ability to lift heavy objects, their ability to reach high and get something off of the shelf. So there's functional measurements, there's measurements of disability. There's ways that researchers measure what's called activities of daily living. And activities of daily living is a person's ability to dress themselves, to get themselves to the bathroom, to feed themselves, to bathe themselves. Activities of daily living is a way to look at the level of care and level of support that an older adult will need. But it's also a way to measure the effects of the aging process. Along with activities of daily living, there's also what's called instrumental activities of daily living. That is a way of measuring a person's ability to go grocery shopping, to pay their own bills, to drive a car, to clean their house. A lot of the tasks that need to be done in order for an elderly person to be able to live independently. So there is the disability level of examination that researchers will use to measure the effects of aging. And then there's tests of function that provide more objective measures that are less susceptible to individual interpretations. So that's things like treadmill tests and things like how heart rate and a person's ability to climb upstairs. So there's functional tests. So ways of measuring the effects of aging are what's called, are commonly used indicators of health. So I want you to be sure that you understand how we measure the effects of aging. So in your week 3 folder, you're going to find 2 videos in addition to this one. And the first one is a video that is about the blue zones. And there are blue zones across the world where pockets of people and communities on average live longer than people in other areas. And this researcher has gone into these areas to really get in and study what their lifestyles are like, what's their diet like, what's the community like, what is it about these regions that people live so long. And this researcher then, has taken what those common threads are in all 7 of those regions to try to put forward essentially a kind of a roadmap for this is what it takes to live a long life. There's one area in the United States that is an area where people on average live longer, and that's in Loma Linda, California. So I think you'll find this video very interesting. And the research that this gentleman has done is really pretty phenomenal stuff. Then there's a video by a gentleman, his company is called Gray Steel, and he talks about the biologic process of aging. And he is also very, very clear on the fact that aging is not going to go away, and that there's no magic pill that anybody is going to be able to take that's going to stop the process of aging. And what his company does is he researches aging as well to help people find ways to age healthy and to achieve compression of morbidity. I just like this video because it emphasizes a lot of things that you will read in Chapter 3. So you will have a learning assessment which will be open week 4 that will cover the topic of week 3, the biological process of aging, as well as the topic in week 4, which is intelligence and creativity in older years. So you can look forward to that learning assessment that will cover the topics of week 3 and week 4. I think I have covered everything I need to. I'm going to take a quick look and make sure that, oh yes, one other thing I posted in week 3 is just something that I created as some feedback from students that have taken this course before, and it's communication tips for working with older people. I've had students, many communication disorder students in this class before, and they've asked for some helpful tips in communicating with older adults. So that is in your folder, week 3, as a resource, but I do want you to take a look at it because there may be a question or two on your learning assessment. Then you also have a discussion board. How long do you want to live? Take a look at the Pew Research article that is posted in this week's folder, and take a look at that article because some interesting research has been done to determine how long do people really want to live? Do we want to live forever? And if we don't want to live forever, why are we spending so much time in research trying to stop the aging process? So just want to hear from you on that. How long do you want to live? So that is what you can expect in week 3, and I think that's about it. So have a good week, and I will see you next week. Take care.